What's up? Welcome to Conspiracy. So, the Curse founding is no stranger to different theorizing out there of what is actually going on with the Space Marines created. And there is one chapter amongst the Curse founding that seems to have gotten off relatively okay with only the positives and really none of the negatives. And this is the Sons of Antaeus, the focus of this conspiracy. This is going to be long-winded, so get some snacks, get some drinks, and let's have some fun. The Sons of Antaeus are a loyalist Space Marine chapter of the 21st founding, known as the Cursed Founding. This was in the 36th millennium. The conspiracy here is that the Sons of Antaeus may have been, quote-unquote, founded here, but aren't the direct products of Mechanicum's meddling during the Cursed Founding. So before I get into the conspiracy proper, which you know from the title of the video, let's discuss the Cursed Founding first. It's important to have the basic understandings. The Cursed Founding, like I mentioned, was in the 36th millennium. It's the 21st founding. It's the largest founding of Space Marine chapters since the second founding. This gives plenty of room to basically fall through the cracks and get stuff happening that you want to kind of, work the system. The whole point of this founding was for the Mechanicum to basically run rampant and play havoc with the Space Marine gene seed, conducting a whole bunch of experiments, building chapters, basically without worry, and truly just experiment on everything. The idea was to identify deficiencies and flaws in the Space Marine gene seed, especially of particular chapters, and try and eliminate those, and ultimately try and produce new and improved Primarch-like Space Marines. Sound familiar? Ultimately, the Cursed Founding was a failure, with relatively few of the chapters remaining and staying loyal. Of them, we know of a couple that are pretty well known. Lamenters, not much I have to say there, with the shorter than stick they get and everything. The Black Dragons, whose boon is their bust, that physical mutation that keeps them barely tolerable by the Imperium at large. And the Minotaurs chapter, which kind of has fallen to the pocket of the High Lords of Terra with their supposed chimeric gene seed and having an unnatural aggression towards other loyalist Space Marine chapters, inciting fights with them if possible. And it's into this fray that the Sons of Antaeus are supposedly formed. Now, if this sounds familiar, it should. The Sons of Antaeus are unusually large and robust Space Marines, even amongst the other superhuman, transhuman Astartes brethren. They are considered to be larger and more robust. And they are capable of surviving wounds that would kill even other Space Marines. Does that sound familiar at all? Well, it should. Now, their unusual ability is thought to result from a mutation in the chapter's gene seed, purposely put there during the Cursed Founding, and there are thoughts that the reason they're difficult to destroy is also ranging partly due to some type of enhanced genetics or reinforced skeletons, and even the naysayers who want to get this chapter maybe reined in because they don't trust anything from the Cursed Founding, even cite the resiliency as being similar to the heretical Death Guard Traitor Legion, which is a bit of a jump for sure. As it stands, though, the augmented skeleton theory is kind of the one that has the most ground, but at this time the truth remains unknown to the resiliency of the Sons of Antaeus. So, the Mechanicum is responsible for the debacle of the Cursed Founding. There's a Mechanicum member by the name of Belisarius Cawl. Belisarius Cawl would definitely be in the know for stuff like this, and I think utilize the Cursed Founding to his advantage. So the theory, the conspiracy, if you will, is that Cawl created the Sons of Antaeus by taking a battle group of Primaris Space Marines in stasis, awakening them early, and equipping them a little bit, normally or even partially Primaris equipment even. We'll get to that a little bit later. And was able to get them in, to be part of the 21st, I should say, founding. So doctoring up, I should say, whatever paperwork and other red tape is needed to have them be listed as one of the cursed founding, which wouldn't be that hard considering the sheer size of this founding. So instead of it being the case of gene seed experimentation, it's a case, well, it kind of is, right? But it's not because of what the cursed founding was trying to do, but because he already had some enhanced space marines, not some, a lot, known as the Primaris. Now, Primaris space marines, as I said, it should sound familiar because Primaris space marines are larger, more resilient Astartes, as well as being physically more powerful and possessing faster reaction times. But specifically, the size and the resiliency is what really is noticeable. And that is definitely something similar to how the Sons of Antaeus are described. Now, we have no real campaign knowledge or battle knowledge of the Sons of Antaeus until the 41st millennium. So 5,000 years go by basically without much spoken about on the Sons of Antaeus at all. But their resiliency does kind of gain attention. It is unclear if it gains attention after this particular battle or if it was kind of known about beforehand in some of the, because they've obviously been in campaigns for 5,000 years, there's going to be some knowledge dropping. However, I think whatever the case is, Cawl is in close contact with this chapter to outfit them, reinforce them to replenish their losses, and to collect the ever vital field data. You only can gain so much in theorizing, right? And you could say in simulations and stuff like that. Actual field data is going to be the most concrete and most important knowledge you're going to get for whatever you're developing. And this would be why Cawl creates the Sons of Antaeus. Now, again, this is all conspiracy. None of this is in the fluff. I'm just going to speak about it as if it were fluff, but keep in mind it's a conspiracy. So, part of the reasoning that they don't have a lot of stuff written at them is, of course, out of character, if you will. GWs didn't write a lot about these guys. Got a little blurb and that it. But Cawl would keep them as best he could away from other Imperial forces. And part of this is the fact that he has them specifically listed as created during the Cursed Founding. This does two things. A, when they are seen, their size and their resiliency, amongst anything else that might be brought up, can be explained away as must be a product of that Cursed Founding shenanigans. B, wanting to stay on your own as a Cursed Founding force is definitely accepted and won't really be questioned by other Imperial forces. The Cursed Founding has a lot of stigma surrounding it, and a cloud hanging over it. And if you don't want to be a part of something and you want to stay away, they're more than happy to let that happen. So that also helps Cawl's purpose for these guys. And when they are completely and utterly isolated and alone, they might be able to bust out their Primaris equipment to a degree and field test it. I say this because their bolt rifles are Mark II. The plasma incinerator style weaponry are Mark IIIs. Now this can be refined over time just by theorizing it and simulating it in a lab environment or whatever. But in field research, you could say, you're definitely going to find your flaws and deficiencies more accurately and quicker. And it could result in the fact that we have the Mark II and the Mark III because they were able to develop it over time and weed out any real major problems to get to where we're at with Primaris equipment. Those are just a couple of examples. Obviously, as you fight alongside other Imperial forces, you're not going to bust out the more extreme Primaris gear at this time because Primaris aren't a thing yet. So if you bust out Inceptor style equipment or repulsors or anything like that, it's a red flag and the jig is up. So not going to happen. However, they are a very capable Space Marine force. Obviously, Space Marines are very capable. And in the 41st millennium, they take part in the Chronicle, well, not the Chronicle. There is a listing called the Chronicles of the Third Interguild War of the Inca Sector. In this Chronicles, they are listed as being there, reported as being seen in action there. And there's a few reputable Imperial forces that are able to kind of corroborate this. And we have one such account that we're able to actually read about. And this is a very good one because this is a fellow Astartes chapter. This is the Subjugators chapter led, or forces, not the whole chapter, but the Subjugators led by Captain Rackman. Sidebar, the Subjugators are a young Space Marine chapter founded at some point in the 41st millennium itself, but they still have several centuries of time to hone themselves, and they're still Space Marines. So they're not any less effective or any less professional, you could say, or anything like that. They're still very much Astartes through and through, and thus their accounts are very reputable. And it's a great first-hand account because not only is it Astartes, it's a captain. And that means he's a veteran of many wars and fought in many planets and understands the physiology well enough of a Space Marine. Not as well as Apothecary, potentially, sure, but still very well. And he knows a lethal hit when he sees one. And it's this account that gives us the insight we get. So even though very little is said to us directly to read about, his account is definitely some of the best information because it's another Astartes force. This isn't some Imperial Guard flunky officer trying to, think about the awe-inspiring nature of a Space Marine in battle or anything like that. This is a fellow Space Marine going, yeah, no, this is not normal, basically. So that is what we're going to be looking at before I dive a little bit deeper. So Captain Rackman leads his subjugators, and they are in an incident in which they find themselves under attack during the Third Inter-Guild War of the Inca sector by the Eldar Void Dragon pirate fleet. Now it's a land battle, but it's forces from that fleet, and they find themselves under heavy fire by the Eldar's anti-grav weapon platforms and vehicles. It's not described as a rout. It's not described as a last stand. It's just described as bitter, bitter embroiled fighting, more or less. Even though it's not specifically called out as such, the nature of its account does not sound like a last stand or a rout. But bitter fighting. And it's during this fighting that a strike force of Sons of Antaeus appear unexpectedly and attack the enemy from behind. This forces the Eldar to redeploy, and they're faced with a sudden situation. That is, we are basically cut off and more or less surrounded by two Astartes forces. Definitely not where any force wants to be. Now, the Eldar don't have long to decide on what to do, right? They are actively engaged with the subjugators' forces, and then all of a sudden the Sons of Antaeus are actively engaging them from behind. They have to act, and they have to make a decision. They have to do it now. They have to make a quick choice. Well, in doing so, they are faced with the prospect of having to do a breakout attack, meaning since they are essentially cut off, they have to pick a line, an enemy line, and try and break through it to basically retreat and regroup. And they know the subjugators' force from being embattled with them. The Sons of Antaeus are a new force in play, and they don't have much time to assess the situation. But the Eldar are not inexperienced. They are very experienced forces, very deadly Xenos, right? So they assess the situation, and they determine to attack the Sons of Antaeus with everything they got, basically, to do this breakout. They decide that they are the lesser of two forces, and thus will have the best success in attacking straight for the Sons of Antaeus line to break through. They do not realize they're not dealing with normal Astartes, but in fact Primaris, right? Again, for the conspiracy. Now this is a risky gambit because they're already embattled with the subjugators. So now they have to redeploy, take their heaviest hitters, their strongest forces, redeploy to be the spear tip of the wedge to punch through the Sons of Antaeus, while also trying to have just enough rear guard flank guarding forces to not just be completely overwhelmed from behind by the subjugators that are now turning their backs on, basically. And the sons of Antaeus hold firm. They hold steady. They join battle with the Eldar forces. And this is when Captain Rackman gives his account of how the sons of Antaeus stand firm in the face of the storm of Eldar firepower. The Eldar are hitting them with whatever they got, and by and large, the Space Marines stand there and take it seemingly imperviously. There's obviously going to be casualties, but forces are being shot at and receiving hits that the captain can plainly see and would be lethal. He knows this. He has no doubt in his mind that would have been a lethal hit, but yet the sons of Antaeus hold firm, continue fighting, and those hit are able to continue fighting. Now, he's not just standing there staring at the fight. He's obviously fighting the Eldar himself and directing his forces. But he does have kind of the best seat in the house to observe the sons of Antaeus capability-wise. And being a captain, he is extraordinarily skilled in both combat and understanding of tactics and everything, and of his fellow Space Marines. So even while doing all this combative stuff, he's still able to keep an eye on the sons of Antaeus. And this is potentially why, fluff reason-wise, not developer reason-wise, but this is fluff reason-wise, we don't get real accurate descriptions of the sons of Antaeus themselves or their weaponry. We don't know their force disposition. We just know they appeared unexpectedly, attacked the Eldar from the rear. Eldar redeployed, tried to break out through sons of Antaeus. The sons of Antaeus stand there and take it like bosses, seemingly impervious, being this immovable anvil upon which the subjugators press their attack and shatter the Eldar forces upon. Once battle is concluded and victory firmly in grasp and the Eldar fully defeated, the sons of Antaeus disappear as mysteriously as they arrived. This is the only real account we get of them in battle. There's nothing arcanely described about what they do, right? Or how they take a hit. There's no flash of some type of void shielding or, no incantations being muttered, no magic being used to instantly close a wound, for example, or anything like that. Just pure grit and resiliency. This is why I feel the Primaris explanation, obviously, once you learn about Primaris, fits. I talked about these guys a while ago, way before Primaris, so I couldn't bring up the idea of Primaris then, because we didn't even know that was a thing. But now that we do, looking back at the Sons of Antaeus, for me, they check off all the right boxes for being a field test of Primaris forces. And not only are they a field test of Primaris forces, more recently we learned about the Vanguard Primaris Space Marines and their ability to be, they are ruthless killers who kind of infiltrate and operate behind enemy lines as saboteurs and assassins and infiltrators and just harassers and killers. And I think not only are the Sons of Antaeus Primaris as a field test, but I think they are a Primaris Space Marine chapter that specializes in these Vanguard operations. Not that they solely have to fight that way, but I think they have a lot of those different types of fighter squads, if you will, amongst their ranks. And I think that their librarianship, at the very least, has a few Vanguard librarians in there. I say this because we have no idea who led the Sons of Antaeus forces, but they arrived unexpectedly and left just the same. Now, this can be chalked up to a bit of, Camille line cloaks, which is something that's been in the War Gear repository for Astartes since the Great Crusade. But in conjunction with that, we have Vanguard librarians who use their psychic capabilities to guide their battle brothers through enemy territory without raising really any suspicion, cloaking them, if you will, masking them, obscuring their passage, making it so they can get into position without really being seen or known until it's too late for the enemy. This sounds an awful lot like what happened at this particular battle. Eldar don't just get snuck up on all willy-nilly like by anybody. Especially not a force of pirates, right? Which signifies a bit of not so much veterancy, but not being, wet behind the ears. Greenhorns, they do their own thing and they survive on their own. They've been doing it for a while. To get the upper hand on them and force them to have to almost panic redeploy and try and do a breakout is no mean feat, or no easy feat, I should say. So I feel like the fact that the librarian was present and leading the Sons of Antaeus fits pretty well. Now, I don't know if they were using bolt carbines or bolt rifles, if they were equipped more traditionally as Space Marines would be, to not trying to make any suspicion rise up past their just sheer resiliency, right? But it's entirely plausible that perhaps some Phobos armor artifice to look a bit more normal could have been in play. I don't know. That's just up for debate there. But what we do know is they arrived unexpectedly and left just as mysteriously. And at the very least, Camille Line Cloaks and a Vanguard librarian specializing in doing just that with his psychic abilities could definitely have paid dividends to doing that mysterious entrance and exit. So, at the end of the day, we heard nothing more about the Sons of Antaeus fluff-wise. We heard nothing since their founding in the 36th millennium, during the Cursed founding, and nothing after the Third Interguild War of the Inca sector. So, we have this to kind of think about. Are they Primaris, or are they just a Cursed founding force? Well, let me go over Primaris a little bit, and then we can kind of more or less call it a video. Primaris Space Marines, as I mentioned, are larger, stronger, more resilient, faster reaction time Space Marines in a nutshell, right? There's more to it. I know people roll their eyes every time, but that's what they're at. They have 3 extra organs. On top of the 19 gene seed implant organs, they get 3 extras. This further enhances their transhuman capabilities, and I think is responsible for why the Sons of Antaeus feel so resilient. The first I'll talk about is the amplifier. This is a little organ, and all this does, I say all, but it's very important, is that it increases the body's growth functions while also intensifying the function of its other transhuman implants. So the 19 and then the other 2 new ones, it intensifies their capabilities, all of them. This is going to definitely help in their size and their strength, and even to a degree, their resiliency. But it's not going to give them that near impenetrable or legendary resiliency status on its own, but it's going to help as well. The second to talk about is the Revitalizer. This is an organ that is dormant until the Astartes undergoes really violent trauma. And then it activates. It expels a whole big hyper cocktail of biochemicals that basically act both as combat stims as well as aiding in the rapid regrowth of tissue and even muscle and bone. Now, I'm not saying that if an arm gets lopped off, that all of a sudden an arm is going to magically regrow in its place out of nowhere. But it is still a bit of a healing factor for the Primaris in times of great trauma, that could transform what would have been a lethal chest wound. Let's say they were stabbed through one of their lungs, one of their hearts, and it, let's say, nicked their spine before the blade was removed. This will turn that potentially lethal strike into just a bad hit. It'll actively seal up the wound in the lungs and in the heart. It would regrow, so those wounds would go away, and even any bone that was nicked, it would just aid in the recovery of the Space Marine immensely and allow them to continue on fighting, or at the very least be attended to more properly by an apothecary where they take cover and fire off from behind cover. Whatever the case is, it's not going to regrow a head, and if you have a 3-foot diameter hole in their chest, it's not going to fix that either. But it is going to definitely aid in their ability to take lethal hits and keep on going. So that resiliency factor definitely gets a big boost in terms of being viewed as near invulnerable because of this Revitalizer. The third is the steel within, and this is basically sinew coils. The Space Marine sinew, I always say that word, sinew. The Space Marine sinew, in your body, we have, sinew is a real thing, we have air in our body, but this is reinforced with what is described as durametallic coil cables. It's not quite to the level of adamantium skeleton like Wolverine, but a near similar premise. What this does, though, is allows it to enhance the strength of the Astartes, as well as giving the body another layer of defense within, further increasing their durability. All this together in conjunction with the other 19 gene seed implant organs leads to the Primaris being the larger, stronger, more resilient, and faster reaction time Astartes. So why aren't the Sons of Antaeus credited with enhanced strength and reaction time? Well, I think this is chalked up to what you can really view and say with real truth. The size of an Astartes and their ability to take a hit is easy to understand, and as a fellow Astartes, as Captain Rackman is, he can definitely attest to the size being unnaturally larger and to the resiliency being near impervious seeming, definitely above and beyond what his Astartes are capable of. That can be viewed by them getting shot and just the sheer size of them. Strength and reaction time are harder to observe, and it's even plausible that what you're observing may not actually be the result of some type of mutation or whatever, but just the result of better training or more enhanced, more training, more veteranship, better equipment that give you advanced warning or whatever, and even potentially arcane enhancement by a librarian or something. You don't really know just by observing it. They didn't do any arm wrestling with the Sons of Antaeus. They don't know about the strength. The Sons of Antaeus being able to, crush somebody's larynx is also not proof either. An Astartes can do that with ease as well. So that doesn't really translate to just mere observance. Now, if the Sons of Antaeus were bench pressing a wave serpent, that would definitely trigger some alarm bells, but that's not the case. And reaction time, that can come to being a more veteran force, perhaps. They are 5 millennia old at this point, so they have the training regimen down, perhaps maybe a little better than the subjugators thought that they were already. Or their equipment has some type of enhanced technology in there. Maybe they have some ties to the Mechanicum, who knows, being that's how they were founded, to be given a bit more of an advanced alert system to potential threats, allowing them to react just that much faster. The point is, it's hard to judge reaction time and strength in those criteria based on merely observing them in a battle in which you are also actively fighting. But size, easy. Resiliency, easy. That's why that's always been attributed to the Sons of Antaeus. With all of that said, the end result of the Sons of Antaeus being a Primaris chapter really early is enhanced field research, actual battle data, coming back to Cawl to make the adjustments and the changes to the armory of the Primaris. This is perhaps why the bolt rifles are Mark II, why the plasma incinerator stuff is Mark III. This could be why Mark X is broken down into different types of variants of itself. Perhaps the whole idea of Vanguard Space Marines really got enhanced by how the Sons of Antaeus were fighting. Whatever the case, with the Ultima founding, the Sons of Antaeus would cease to be a very unique force, if this is true, right? Curse founding or not, Primaris chapters exist now. And if the Sons of Antaeus, which we don't get their resiliency compared to Primaris at all, but if it is true that they are indeed Primaris forces, obviously it would be a retcon because it didn't exist at the time the Sons of Antaeus were created. I get that. But if it comes to be that is how the fluff goes with the Sons of Antaeus, then they would not feel like a very unique force anymore, which would be perhaps a bit of a letdown for people who like the idea of curse founding giving something interesting and unique kind of approach. I completely understand that. But I think this would then credit the Sons of Antaeus with being the first and the oldest of Primaris Space Marine chapters, therefore being perhaps one of the best, most veteranship and trained Primaris forces out there. And that, I think, is pretty cool in and of itself. But of course, that's personal opinion. Now, with all that said, we just don't know. But I will say this. The Primaris Space Marines, aside from being arranged into reinforcements for established chapters and making their own chapters, also had the Unnumbered Sons. Not going to go into that. But the Unnumbered Sons were unofficially known among themselves as the Grey Shields. And the Sons of Antaeus livery is gray and black. Coincidence? Yes, but still pretty cool. Anyways, that's it for the Sons of Antaeus. Long-winded for sure, but I think worth it to really jump down that conspiracy rabbit hole. Do you agree or disagree, and why? Put it in the comment section. The why is almost more important than the yes or no. I mean, obviously yes or no helps dictate your why, but I am definitely curious your thoughts. I'm a big fan of this conspiracy because it's one that isn't just handed to us in the fluff to then jump off of and springboard off of. The Dawnblade of Farsight is one of those. The Chimeric Gene Seed is another. And there are other bits of fluff that are still very cool, interesting fluff, but it kind of is self-set up to be kind of a conspiracy setup. This is not one of those. This is a case of old but relevant and still canon fluff for a Space Marine force and new evidence about these Primaris being in existence and the fluff behind them, and then we have to now sit down and make the connection if there even is one. So share your thoughts in the comment section below. Always interested to read them. Thanks very much for tuning in and sticking in. If you made it to the end, that's awesome. Feel free to subscribe to be part of future conversations like this and many others. And until the next one, take it easy.